Right, so for part 2 of the pump basics that I want to get across, these commonly asked questions, is does an RS203 have a quicker camshaft? Which we hear all the time on the internet. You want an RS203 because it has a quicker camshaft. So what I'm going to do is, through there on bench 1, I've got a 156, RS156, an early 1986-ish pump. And on this I've got the 203, the latest of the pumps with the supposedly quicker camshaft. So what I'm doing is I'm plotting degrees of rotation of the actual camshaft versus lift that I'm getting at the element. So as you can see, as I turn this clockwise, look, can you see how that is giving me cam lift? Now what I'm doing is, let's turn it to 0 so you can get an idea. Right, that's at 0. So what I shall do, and I'll show you the chart in a second, as I pull that 1 degree, I'm taking a measurement. As I pull it 2 degrees, I take a measurement. As I pull it 3 degrees, I take a measurement. 4 degrees, I take a measurement. And I'm doing that on both camshafts so that you can have an overlay, we can create a graph, and we can show the 2 different camshafts and how they react. Does that sound good? Let's review the information. So students, let's conclude our findings from yesterday's tests. As these tests take a long time, what you were just watching a second ago was yesterday, and now it's today. It's like I'm time traveling, isn't it? So what I've done is plotted well, actually I haven't, Rebecca has. I took the results and did the testing. She plotted. So any complaints about this, please forward it in an email. You know, put attention, Rebecca. I'm fine with that. But any of my work, don't criticise. So right, what we've actually found here is the blue line is the RS156, and this is the camshaft lift that we're talking about. This is the actual. These are the degrees, so 0 is the start of injection here. So if we were to draw a line straight up there, that would be the point in which injection starts. And then you can see this is as the cam progresses, pushing the element up. And then that point there where it tapers off is about 6.9 millimeters of lift from 0, remember, that's not 6.9 millimeters of working stroke of the element, because to work out the working stroke, you would take the start point, which on a 156 is 1.5 mil, and then you would go to the 6.9, and that would give you the working stroke, which, yeah, it near about 5.5 mil of working stroke. So what have we found about the important thing? What we need to discuss here is the RS203 a quicker camshaft than the RS156? Well, yes, it actually is. So we found out 2 things, haven't we, in this little feature? We found out that 200 horsepower potential out of a standard pump is bullshit, but the camshaft business is actually true, which is very interesting, isn't it? So let's have a quick look at the data and see what this quicker camshaft entails. So the red line here, the red line is the RS203. The blue line here is the RS156. And the green line is the EDC pump. I just put that in as a little control piece, and I'm going to tell you something interesting about EDC cams in a second. So the blue one, the RS203 cam, the RS156 cam, sorry, the older version, that starts injection with the standard element at 1.5 mil of lift, and it finishes injection all the way toward the top. It's got like a nice progressive ramp. Now this point in which injection starts in relation to the cam lift really depends on the design of the element, because if the inlet porthole in the side of the element was in a different place, let's look at the porthole here, if that porthole was potentially higher up, then that's going to retard the start point, and if that was lower down it could retard it, and obviously you could adjust that with shims also Did I just say that the wrong way around?
You said it retarded both ways.
Sorry, if the hole was further up, it would retard the start point. If the hole was further down, it would advance the start point. That's what I meant to say. So, yeah, don't worry too much about the start of this, but it is interesting. It is interesting, nevertheless, to see how the standard pumps operate, because all three of these lines are the standard pumps with the standard elements that they were designed for. Obviously, this would change, this start position and potentially the end position could change with a different element design. So, what can we conclude from this, from a power making point of view? Well, from what we can see here is, obviously, the RS203 cam, it lifts and it gets it to that maximum lift of about 6.9 millimeters quicker. You know, it gets it done sooner. The RS203, it's sort of finished here, about there. Whereas the 156 cam is finishing much, much further here. So, you know, if we were to look down at the degrees, the 203 cam's finishing at about 28 degrees, and the RS156 is maybe like 38 degrees. So what does this mean? If you were trying to squeeze the most power possible out of a really small element, like we were trying to do yesterday, for example, getting that fuel in that shorter space between here and here, in a shorter amount of degrees, is going to be beneficial, because you're going to be struggling to make any power because they can't put enough fuel in. That is going to be the main benefit. So if you wanted to build the hottest 6mm pump you possibly could, or the hottest 5.5mm pump you possibly could, that would be the ideal situation. You want to be using that cam, because it'd get that injection to happen much quicker. Whereas when we're dealing with 8.5mm elements and things like that, they have so much. They can put such a large quantity of fuel in such a short duration that in reality, maybe this longer cam might be more beneficial. So, as far as making horsepower, you may see a difference if you were using an element that was really struggling to put fuel in a short duration, like the 5.5s and maybe a 6. Then I think you're going to see a performance difference between these two cams. 7.5mm elements and upwards, honestly, maybe if you were pushing a 7.5 right up in the horsepower range to like trying to get 600 horsepower like I have with them, then yes, yeah, there probably is a gain of a 203. But with 8.5mm elements and people's general requirements, I would say that there's not going to be any notable difference, because you've got to remember, this isn't related to the throttle. This is just how quickly the cam can inject the quantity of diesel per revolution of the engine. You know, this is obviously happening every time, every single combustion stroke. So it's not like a ramp angle like the throttle ramp angle. This isn't like a dyno chart. It's just how quickly the fuel's injected, and obviously this is happening a lot of times. So from a drivability point of view, the camshaft, I don't think, is going to make a shit of difference. You know, you're not going to feel a drivability difference. Could you possibly maybe just hear a slight noise difference? Maybe. If the elements were really big, you might just hear something. But again, it really depends on the element, because this start position can totally vary depending on the element. So that all has to be taken into consideration. So that's what we've concluded. If you're wanting to make, you're going to make very low horsepower with the standard pump, we realise that. But if you're wanting to get the most standard horsepower you can out of a normal pump, probably use an RS203. When it comes to making big horsepower in general, I don't think that you're going to have an issue with either. I certainly haven't. My biggest horsepower cars have been with the earlier RS156s. So I hope you've learned something there, and we're moving closer towards learning about this billet pump.